It did not arrive with thunder, armies, or warning. It arrived in silence, and within years, Europe would never be the same. Behind those locked doors, families were already fighting an unseen enemy that no king, army, or physician could stop. The catastrophe became known as the Black Death, one of the deadliest pandemics ever recorded in human history. Between 1347 and 1351, millions of lives were lost as the plague spread across continents with terrifying speed. Yet the story did not begin in Europe. Its origins lay thousands of kilometers away along the trade routes of Asia. Many historians believe the outbreak began somewhere in Central Asia, where invisible bacteria quietly circulated among wild rodent populations for centuries. Merchants unknowingly carried far more than silk and spices, hidden within busy trade routes. Death had already begun its journey west. Every stop along the ancient trade routes connected distant civilizations, allowing an unseen catastrophe to travel faster than anyone imagined. By 1346, the plague had reached the bustling trading city of Kaffa on the Crimean Peninsula, where history would take a terrifying turn. The city soon found itself surrounded by the Mongol Golden Horde, turning a thriving port into a desperate battlefield. Then something unexpected happened. Disease spread through the besieging army itself, forcing commanders into an unprecedented decision. According to several contemporary chroniclers, infected bodies were launched over Kaffa's walls, though historians still debate the event's true impact. Whether or not Kaffa was the decisive moment infected, ships soon carried the plague across the Black Sea toward Europe. In October 1347, those ships reached the thriving Sicilian port of Messina, bringing an invisible nightmare ashore. Within days, fear spread through the city as unexplained illness appeared among sailors, merchants, and local residents alike. Authorities tried to isolate the danger, but by then the plague had already escaped beyond the city's walls. From Messina, the plague followed Europe's busiest trade routes, reaching one city after another with devastating speed. Within months, major ports including Genoa, Venice, and Marseille faced the same terrifying pattern of sudden illness and rising deaths. No kingdom understood what they were facing. Many believed the disaster was a punishment, while others blamed poisoned air or unknown forces. Without knowing its true cause, every attempt to stop the plague failed, allowing it to spread relentlessly across the continent. For many victims, the illness began like an ordinary fever before, rapidly becoming something far more terrifying. Painful swellings often appeared near the neck, armpits, or groin, giving the disease one of its most recognizable symptoms. Today, scientists know these swellings were called buboes, a defining symptom of bubonic plague caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis. Without antibiotics or knowledge of bacteria, medieval physicians had almost no effective way to stop the infection from spreading. As the plague advanced, entire households disappeared behind locked doors, leaving once vibrant neighborhoods hauntingly silent. Fear spread almost as quickly as the disease itself, transforming ordinary neighbors into strangers who avoided even the smallest contact. Church bells rang throughout the day, becoming a constant reminder that another family had suffered an unimaginable loss. Markets closed, trade collapsed, and daily life slowly came to a standstill as uncertainty gripped every corner of society. Even rulers, nobles, merchants, and clergy were not spared. For perhaps the first time, death ignored wealth and social status alike. Many villages were abandoned completely, leaving homes, churches, and farmlands to slowly disappear beneath the passage of time. With countless laborers gone, farms produced less food, businesses closed, and entire regional economies began to collapse. Ironically, the disaster also transformed Europe, creating labor shortages that eventually reshaped society and the balance of power. For surviving workers, everything changed. Labor became scarce and full. The first time, ordinary people gained unexpected bargaining power. Landowners competed for workers by offering higher wages, weakening the foundations of Europe's long-standing feudal system. Historians believe these changes helped reshape Europe's economy, society, and eventually the path toward the Renaissance. Yet one haunting question remained unanswered. What exactly caused the Black Death, and how did it spread so rapidly? The answer was a bacterium called Yersinia pestis, a microscopic organism capable of causing devastating forms of plague. In its bubonic form, the bacterium could spread through infected flea bites, creating a deadly chain between animals and humans. But the story was more complicated than rats alone. Plague could also spread through other animal hosts and, in some forms, people. And when plague affected the lungs, transmission could become even more direct, allowing infectious droplets to pass between people. By 1348, the plague had moved far beyond the ports, reaching inland towns where escape became almost impossible. There was no vaccine, no antibiotics, and no reliable test to tell the healthy from the infected. Some turned to prayer, others to superstition, while desperate communities searched for explanations in a world they could not understand. But fear had another consequence. Desperate people began searching for someone to blame, with tragic consequences for innocent communities. Across Europe, rumors became weapons, and innocent people were accused of deliberately causing the plague through poisoning wells and supplies. These accusations sometimes erupted into persecution, revealing how quickly fear could destroy trust between neighbors during catastrophe. Yet not everyone responded with fear. Some communities organized care, burial, food distribution, and practical measures to survive. And slowly, authorities began experimenting with isolation, separating people and ships in desperate attempts to slow the disease. As deaths multiplied, even traditional burials became difficult, overwhelming families, priests, and communities already struggling to cope. In some places, burial grounds filled so quickly that authorities had to create new spaces outside crowded towns. The scale of death was almost impossible to comprehend, and historians still debate exactly how many people died. Modern estimates suggest tens of millions died, but the precise number remains uncertain because medieval records are incomplete. By 1351, the Great Wave had begun to recede, but Europe that emerged from it was profoundly transformed. Millions were gone, leaving surviving communities with more land, fewer workers, and an economy forced to adapt. Workers could demand better terms, while landowners struggled to maintain the old order with fewer hands available. Across Europe, these pressures contributed to social unrest as authorities struggled to control wages and preserve traditional hierarchies. The first Great Wave receded, but plague did not disappear. It would return, repeatedly haunting generations that survived the first catastrophe. Later outbreaks appeared across Europe, reminding survivors that the disease had become a recurring threat rather than a single event. The psychological scars lasted even longer, shaping art, literature, religion, and the way Europeans imagined death itself. But perhaps the Black Death's greatest legacy was invisible. It changed Europe's population, economy, institutions, and future. Europe did not simply return to normal. The catastrophe had permanently altered who held land, wealth, and economic power. Population recovered slowly, while survivors and their descendants rebuilt towns, farms, families, and institutions across the continent. Yet beneath this recovery remained a memory passed from survivors to children. The world could change without warning. And centuries later, the Black Death remains a warning of how quickly disease can reshape human civilization. The Black Death did not destroy Europe completely. It forced a wounded civilization to rebuild itself differently. Its survivors carried forward new economic realities, altered social relationships, and memories that would outlive their generation. The tragedy also changed how Europeans recorded death, remembered the past, and understood the fragility of ordinary life. For centuries afterward, outbreaks would return, but none would erase the memory of the catastrophe that began in 1347. Today, the science is clearer, the medicine stronger, yet the fundamental lesson remains painfully familiar. Disease can change everything. More than 6 centuries later, the empty streets of medieval Europe still remind us how fragile normal life can be. Behind every closed door was a story of survival, loss, fear, and a world permanently changed by invisible death. The Black Death eventually faded from sight, but its shadow remained etched into Europe's history forever.